Banu, Aziz, welcome to the Startup Show.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you very much.
Today is an interesting one because you don't have your own business, do you?
No, I don't.
But you do know a lot about business, don't you?
See,
This is the thing.
That's the thing.
Modesty is the best policy, but
Yes.
people here want to learn from you as well. You've got a wealth
They
of
can-
experience. Wear it as a suit of armor, as a badge of honor.
I know some things.
Let's talk about some of the things you know about business. So let's just talk about your experiences to this point. You've got experiences in what industries?
I'm not going to count any of the things I had done before I graduated. Just a little shout out to my first boss, Willian. Anyway, I'm not going to mention any of those things. So let's start with advertising, which I was in for about 5 years. And I think that is the industry that shaped the way my head works now and the way I approach everything in life. And the reason I believe that we are not responsible for what we say, we are more responsible for what we end up communicating. There are certain things, for example, that you are communicating without saying them, and you're saying something else. And I think the industry is what taught me that that's what we're responsible for, because most of communication isn't about what you have said. It's what you've done and what you've shown.
I think there's a statistic that 70% of communication is non-verbal. I think at least when you're in person, that's the case. Obviously online, it's a little bit different. But so advertising, your experience in advertising taught you to think about human interactions in a different way, and you use that model whenever you do anything else now in business?
Yes. Especially about, advertising, communication and branding. I believe that your brand is your loudest voice. So, yeah, it did shape the way I approach everything.
This is branding for a company or personal branding, or are you talking
All
in
of it.
general?
All of it.
What is branding? Like, what does it mean to have a brand?
It means to have an identity, to have something that makes you rather than anything else. For example, currently I work in hospitality in Silver Medal Company, and we have two identities, Elises Shawarma and Leilaki. Both of them with a little Lebanese undertone, but they're completely different brands. This is supposed to be funny, this is supposed to be bougie, that is the essence of branding, not your logo and the colors and all of that. That is your brand, and then the rest of it is in support. So the current understanding here of what it means to have a brand identity seems to be more about the visual, but I think it should be more about context.
So like the feeling it conveys in the
Yeah.
mind of your ideal consumer, like that.
Yes.
So
To whom you relate.
branding, so when you think of like a very popular brand, it gives you a feeling.
Yeah.
It gives you a taste of what to expect from it. So the ones that are consistent with their brand, we can talk about big brands, Nike, you can think about that as a brand. You can think about the type of athletes that they onboard to represent that brand, successful, driven. You associate that brand with those traits, and then if you then buy the product or service from that brand, you feel like you're buying into that identity almost. So you're tapping into that space. I want to hear it from you, brother. These are my ideas. How do you see it? Because you're obviously working with many different brands, developing their identities. How do you realize what they want to do in the long term? Because you can't just change your identity every 6 months. It has to be a long term.
I feel like the smaller the scale of the business, the less consistent they end up being about all of this, because larger entities have the patience for what it takes to develop and communicate an entire identity. It's like raising a child. Whenever you are launching a new brand, it is very much like raising a child, because most brands in the beginning, they don't fall into the They don't fall into the mold that you had intended for them in the beginning. Maybe this is just my experience, but very much like raising a child, they develop a personality. Most of your projects, most businesses, they develop a personality as time goes on.
So initially they might not be 100% clear on what that is, but by the process of moving forward with the business, they gradually find their lane, that lane being the brand.
This isn't to underestimate intentionality. So you could be very, very intentional when you are developing a brand. Experts are able to do this very well if they have the tools and the budgets and the vision for it. But there is so much room for a personality to grow.
Okay, so like for example, some people might be listening, they're trying to start their first brand. What kind of mistakes could they avoid, or what kind of things could they do initially to help them develop that clarity on how they should start building that brand from a stable foundation?
Stop being too picky about the little things and stop trying to be symbolic in your logos. This is, I think my pet peeve when people are trying to say that the logo should symbolize this color for that feeling and this and that, and they have 50 million symbols they're trying to fit into one teeny. That is not what logos are in branding. They are simply the name of your child, and that is all. And do not be too picky. Don't torture yourself trying to come up with the perfect one. As long as it is unique enough, you're fine.
I've noticed there's a common kind of vibe. Obviously, each brand is different, but you've got big companies like Airbnb, like Nike, like Salesforce, like all of these. Their branding is so simple. At least if we're talking specifically about the logo, it's amongst one of the simplest kind of things that you could create. And I've also seen how they've transitioned their brands over time. They've got simpler with time. You're saying then, to people that are looking to start their own brand, to start simple and don't overthink it, because a lot of people spend a lot of time ideating on what the brand colors, the positioning, the logo. They spend a lot of time where they could potentially spend that time developing the product or service. Instead, they're channeling the majority of their early efforts into trying to develop that brand identity.
Spend time on your positioning, price positioning, brand positioning, your tone of voice. Do balance between the amount of time you give to developing a logo and the visual part of branding. Try to balance between that and the personality of your brand, because it matters more, if not as much.
When you say brand positioning, are you meaning the audience in which they're trying to appeal to attract their ideal customer for their product or service? Or
I meant mainly the personality positioning. I'm going to give you one of our brands as an example. The same example I mentioned earlier. Leylaki, which is a Lebanese restaurant in Empire, and we have El Estez, which is a shawarma brand. Now, when I'm talking about positioning, the permission I can give to my fast food chain, to the shawarma, to be funny, to be casual, I cannot give the same liberties to Leylaki. So this is what I mean when I say define the rules, define the personality. The brand is not just visual. I don't know how many times I need to mention this. It's pay some attention to developing a personality for your brand. And it's very, very difficult. I don't think personally I've done a very, very good job of achieving what I wanted, for example, with El Estez. Limitations are, some of them within my power, some of them not. But I believe that as soon as you have that figured out and you become relatable and you start talking to the people, you are much more likely to be loved than bland brands.
So you're going to stand out in their mind. So when they think of the name, they can think about the adjectives that you can associate with them. Let's say funny, risk-taking, or things like that, adventurous, as opposed to another brand or brand name and identity. There could be other adjectives that come in the mind of people when they want to describe that brand based on the narrative that's been presented to them, everything else they've seen. And so when you speak with the owners of these brands to try and create that brand identity with them, do you also try and impart something, or how does that process work actually? Because I've got some ideas, but like, how do you start that ideation phase with them? Because I think there's a lot of opportunities where you working with these brands, there's probably some crossover in terms of things that you do with the others as well, to get to a point where you can start from that identity that you can build from. How does that process look like?
I always say that I've been very, very lucky to have worked with people who are very, very receptive to the sorts of ideas we end up pitching. Because there are times where the creator of a brand, the creator of a product is not so open to certain proposals that they see as jargony, as like those are just fluff words to them and all of that. So I've been very, very lucky to have had the experience of working with people who are very open. The process is very, very simple. Usually most brand owners have their own vision. And in order to prevent having your marketer or your marketing agency's habits, preformed habits, affect the brand, you listen first. You listen to the person with a vision. There's always a person with a vision. And you have to identify the person with the vision. And then everything else is easily developed from there.
So it always comes from that, because then
that always comes from a person.
So it has to, so the person who started or built, or the people, if it's a team, they have a vision of what they see, and it's your job to then take that vision and articulate it in a way that's consistent and encompasses all of the key elements, key feelings that you want to convey in the brand, so that they can build from that place.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I would also say that whenever you're working with, let's say, a creative director in advertising, or those people are always putting a little bit of themselves into the project as well. There's lots of artists that at this point I can recognize their work.
Just from the... Oh, okay.
I would say I am able to recognize an ad directed by a specific director in Suli. Dear friend of mine, Ahsan, he's probably... Hi. I can recognize the language to a degree, because people put themselves into the work they do. It is impossible to be in a creative field and not put yourself into it.
Speaking of creativity, now obviously we're in the year 2025. There's been an advent of tools that are supporting people in terms of their creativity. Shout out to OpenAI.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
How recognizable is that?
Very.
I feel like because of what has happened, because of the widespread reach of AI, we need to be extra careful about jargon words and fluff words in our branding, in our communication. And we need to work even harder to give your brand an identity. Please stop copy-pasting directly and being like every other brand. I don't know if you've noticed, every restaurant sounds the same now.
I have.
And sometimes, if you look at their social media posts, the caption, the social media company didn't even bother removing the air quotes. The
Sometimes the prompt is still there when it, the ending or the beginning. It's sometimes I've noticed that, and it's just like, it was obvious by itself. At least put one level of effort into just cleaning it or pretending like it was written.
And that long dash ChatGPT always puts.
Apparently, so I used to read writing, so I never actually thought about it. It's called an M dash, and I never used to think of that as a sign of AI generated text. Obviously, until AI started to come in and you're starting to see it used more and more, people use that as an indicator, but that's not, it's still good English to use it in general terms, but most people don't use that, or they don't know where to find that on their keyboard.
Even when they do the work on ChatGPT, they copy paste and they remove all
the
of
dashes. Yeah. But this is the thing though, in the line of work of branding in advertising, do you feel that that's had a net positive effect or a net negative effect on the state of the situation?
That has had, or that eventually, because I feel like so far it's been very frustrating for a lot of people. For example, designers that spent ages mastering something, uh, and then they feel like they are at risk of becoming obsolete, or not that they're at risk of becoming obsolete, they are scared or sad for the amount of time they spent learning to do things analog and manual, which I feel like so far this has been very, very frustrating for a lot of people in the industry. But if we're thinking long term, of course it's a net positive.
So for them, they're thinking they've spent X amount of years honing their craft, trying to be the very best at what they can do, and overnight has come a tool that could put that into disrepute. It could create a situation where they're going to become redundant. To people that are creative types in branding, drawing, these kind of things, do you feel that there's a way that they could transition to still be relevant? Because just to bring it back to branding, if you have a personal brand, people buy into the person before they buy into the product sometimes. And sometimes the personal brand or the company brand, you can relate to it on a personal level. So going forward, because I have this idea now that because of all of this internet flooding with AI generated content, people are going to be more and more interested in authenticity, in buying into people and actual real interactions. Do you feel that there's a transition in terms of the way branding is going to work in that regard?
I don't think that there's an awareness in the public that they are drawn to the real, but they are drawn to the real. Except when we're talking about AI fluff, which is like the videos of, I don't know if you've seen the Italian nonnas that are making unlimited amount of pasta, and somehow everybody's falling into
The loop.
So yeah. Besides the very obviously AI content that goes viral, I feel like, especially in text and especially from brands, people have a preference for the real, for the human. Some of us are aware, and we recognize it, and some people aren't even aware why they have a preference for one thing and not the other. And also, I want to address, guys, please ChatGPT in personal text. So,
You
what's
have,
up?
you have now, yeah, but it's only going to get better, by the way. It's going to become more and more indistinguishable. People like us who can notice when it's been AI generated and not, over time, it's going to get harder and harder for people like us to realize, because it's going to get better and better. But
There's a possibility that the opposite might happen, actually.
People are going to get...
Like the snake eating its own tail. AI is going to be trained on AI generated content, and it's going to keep repeating itself. So like the snake eating its own tail, unless you train the AI models to not train themselves on previously AI generated content, there's a possibility that it might get worse before it gets better.
Maybe. I did see some research about their AI companies training their models, reaching a limit in terms of the available information they're training them on, and so they might resort to... But that can have that effect that you're mentioning. But this is the thing. For me, I gravitate towards things like, I can read for hours without thinking. But the moment I read something and I can feel like it's AI generated, I disengage. I don't know what it is. And I've spoken with friends and other people that are entrepreneurs. They have that same thing. They've told me. Whereas someone writes a blog post now, they've wrote it, it's about topics that I'm interested in, I can just read it. And I know it's been written by that person, even though it's
assisted by AI.
Potentially, and that's fine. I mean, you can use it as a tool, but again, if you're thinking about the way that things are going to develop, it's going to be easier to create copy. It's going to be easier to create images. It's going to be easier to create brand identities with AI. You know, Canva, you've got Adobe, they're all generating these tools off the back of AI to make people's life easier and lower the barrier of entry, so they don't need to pay for expensive creative or advertising agencies to do that. They can leverage those benefits more accessibly, so that anyone now can start a business, but they can start a business in all of the facets that they might not be skilled in doing as well. Web design, you can create a web page just by writing a prompt, explaining exactly what you want, coloring, layout. There's tools for that. There's tools also for creating brand packets, the brand identities. There's also tools for everything else.
Writing prompts is a talent. Learning how to write the perfect prompt is actually the skill set that is replacing doing the thing on your own.
Is that a short-term skill set or a long-term? Because there's going to be, I think, assistance for that. Right now, you can just write me a prompt to create the best LinkedIn post, for example. It's going to give you all of the key elements it needs, white space, certain amount of length, bullet points, all of that. It's going to give you that brief. And then you can use that prompt after asking for that prompt to then create. So it's already, you can already kind of skip the need for developing that skill.
You can
to a
also
degree.
just ask, what should I specify in a prompt for X, Y, Z?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So eventually, though, we're going to get to a point where the person can do everything in a business in terms of the branding, the advertising, like I've even read about Facebook, Meta. You can create ads, or they want to create a situation where you can create ads off the back of a prompt, or rather, they can identify your ideal audience and they can create the right messaging to appeal to them, so that it makes your life easier when you're managing your ad account there. It's all going to get, it's like from all angles it's improving. Are you concerned at all about that transition?
Not concerned, no, because excited is more of the term. I want AI to optimize my targeting. Please do. Some of the features you mentioned from AI, actually, they're very, very odd. I'm going to tell you an example. We had a singer at Leilaki performing. Her name was Nancy Nasrallah. And, we promoted, blah, blah, blah. Someone had clicked an optimization feature on the meta ads, and somehow Facebook decided that this is Nancy Atram. And then people were sending me screenshots saying, why are you claiming that Nancy Atram is coming to your restaurant? And I said, she's not. Nancy Nasrallah is. And I looked, and lo and behold,
What happened?
some people were being told that Nancy Atram, because, the AI, I don't know how it decided.
The copy changed in the
Yeah,
ad?
the copy changed.
Mm.
Because there's an optimization. You can click to have the copy optimized by AI. And for good reason, I suppose, they decided that the word Nancy Ajram is more likely to get
attract.
attention. So they started telling people.
So optimized for the goal as opposed to the truth, maybe.
Yeah.
So, okay.
The AI would do anything to get what it wants.
This is the thing, and that's the dangerous thing about it. We can talk about that doomsday scenario maybe later on. But yeah, okay. So in terms of now, though, the role of what your team do you feel that is going to become redundant in the future? Or do you feel like you guys can adapt fast enough to still maintain that relevance so that you can still provide the service that you're providing, leveraging these tools, and clients would still pay for that benefit?
Okay. The thing is, you're in my current role, I'm the marketing manager, so there's a difference. I'm the client and the agency suffers from me. The tables have flipped. Okay? So if you are asking, like, for me, managing multiple outlets and all of that, it does not concern me at all. It's actually what it's doing for me, the client, is it's giving me the ability to get the same amount of work done with a smaller social media agency, with a smaller advertising company,
Budget, yeah.
and I'm happy. Who's not happy is the designers in the advertising agency. They're not. I'm happy. I'm very happy about this. I get to pay less for more.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, the client in this relationship that you're talking about is not complaining. So there are industries that benefit, or roles that benefit from this, and roles that actually lose out on, good business because of it.
What advice would you give to those people that are currently at risk? What should they do right now to ensure that they can still survive?
Learn how to write a good prompt and learn how to sell yourself.
When you say sell yourself, are we entering personal branding territory?
Yes, because I feel like for a lot of these talents, for creative talents, their personal brand can set them apart from what AI can generate. What AI can do is write the most generic, the most likely, but it doesn't have a personality. And like I said, creatives are always putting themselves into the work. So work on your personal branding and you are less likely to be replaceable.
So personal branding, let's unpack that a little bit, because a lot of people are interested in that now. We can see clear as day the benefits of a personal brand in so many different areas, from companies looking for people with a strong personal brand to support what they're doing, or other people that have developed their own personal brand, creating their own products or services that piggyback off the success of their personal brand. What advice would you give to people that are looking to start and build their own personal brand in this day and age?
Honestly, I feel like this has gotten out of control because what people mean by it is just being intentional about the way you present yourself and your personality.
So being authentic.
This, all it takes is to be self-aware. Self-awareness and intentionality in your actions is all it takes. That is all that personal branding is. For example, if you are aiming to have your personal brand be a relatable, caring, empathetic person, listen to people. So the action, the objective, and the action to reach the objective, it's all about self-awareness, and that's all you need. So become self-aware and be the person you're trying to be is all. That's personal branding. I don't see more of it. I don't think that there's more to the subject than that.
Have you seen personal brands at the moment, or people trying to develop them, that are inconsistent with the reality of that person?
In politics, mainly, yes.
What about, so authenticity, I think, is key in personal branding, because you want to do it for a sustained period of time to build, because brand building is not an overnight thing. It has compound interest. It builds with time. Maybe the actions or activities you do right now, you might not realize the benefits of until 18 months down the line. And so you have to be playing a long game. And the best way to play the long game, especially with a personal brand, is to be consistent with yourself. Self-awareness, understanding what you like, what you don't like, what you believe in, what you want to support, and the way you want to support it, and being very clear on that from day one and sticking with it. Otherwise, if you start to change your tune 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
When you're talking about authenticity, be yourself isn't always, by the way, the best advice when it comes to personal branding, because
Some people
sometimes you really need to work on yourself.
Yeah.
I myself have been one of those people. I've had this argument a lot with some friends. I am not the loudest advocate of my own. And this is, if I'm being the most authentic version of myself, I wouldn't have been here at all. Perhaps this was an effort to consciously work on the personal branding and become aware of the problem I had previously, which was not advocating for myself publicly, and working on it and showing up in public on camera. I was very often a little black sheep, I felt.
But you have a situation now where what is unseen counts for nothing in this world. And if you don't put yourself out there, many doors of opportunities close before you've even had a chance to see them or open them. So
I don't want my personal brand to be the person who can't advocate for herself. I want my personal brand to be a little louder.
So yeah, you're moving a little bit outside of your comfort zone to be that person.
And that is personal branding. That's a huge part of it. And that's what I meant by it is sometimes bad advice to tell people, just be yourself in your personal branding. No, work on it. Tweak. visualize, just like you do with a product. Visualize the identity that you're looking for and work towards becoming that person.
Let's talk about some of the brands that you've worked with in the past. How many brands would you say you've worked with to support them on their goals?
That is very difficult.
More than 100?
Because I was at Hama Group, it was for a very long time the most prominent advertising agency in all of Iraq. One of the first, actually. Yeah, more than 100.
So tell me about some of these experiences that you had supporting them in terms of, do you have any stories or any examples of things that went really well or things that didn't go so well, so they could be potential pitfalls people could avoid?
Okay. Being in a creative, this moment in time, we have a huge content problem. Okay? And what I've noticed is the people who write the concept of content or ads or campaigns don't manage very well to get their point across to the second creative, which is the visual person or the director in all of this. There's a disparity usually in the communication between this part of the team and that part of the team. I believe that I have failed many, many times in that regard. I have failed to, for example, let's say I have an ad in mind and there's a very specific visual and I haven't been able to communicate it very well to the designer and it just doesn't come out the way I want it. This is one of the things that AI is helping with. I feel like I have enough tools to create a rough version of what I'm looking for and then show it to the person that can complete the idea. This is something that I was struggling with, and AI is fixing it for me.
So reducing the miscommunication.
Reducing the miscommunication between, because a piece of content, like the same way that you feel about texts, visuals as well, and general ad ideas and general campaign ideas, they have that same effect that when they aren't very genuine, they're more forgettable. If it's not executed in the way that the original creator of the idea had envisioned it, sometimes it ends up being better, but oftentimes it ends up feeling off to the audience. They sense it. People are very, very smart. Another thing that I feel like we as a nation have failed in, we as the advertising community locally have failed in, is we don't give the audience enough credit. We don't think they're smart enough.
So if you assume that because they are smart, this is the thing, even people that might not notice if it's a good ad or not, if you to ask them specific questions about what resonated with this or that, they're smart, they're attuned to their taste, they're attuned to what's good, what's engaging, what's not, what disengages them. And if you assume the audience is very smart, it kind of increases the bar at which you operate, so that everything you do has to be, you understand that this person is not going to be fooled. You need to go a step further in terms of your effort to create something that is going to be memorable, that's going to stand out in their mind. Otherwise, it's just going to blend in with all of the rest of the noise that they are bombarded with every day. I don't know what statistic it is, but I remember hearing something about, I think it's people see, I think it's over 100 ads a day or something each day. Very few of them are memorable. And if you want to get into that space where you can stay here in their mind for a long enough period of time with as fewer impressions as possible, then you have to step your game up.
One of the challenges in achieving that level of visibility and memorability is the perception of manipulative intent. The audience is smart enough to feel manipulative intent. I'll give you an example of, for example, you're working with an influencer and their first idea is often, oh, I'm going to do a video that doesn't look like an ad. Honey, they know it's an ad. So just be upfront about it. Certain things, perception of manipulative intent, it makes people a little angry at you.
It alienates them.
Yeah, very, very much so, yes. So one of the common mistakes is that it's assuming that your audience isn't smart enough to know when you're being manipulative, and self-awareness is very, very trendy right now when it comes to branding. I don't know if you've seen, for example, in the communication of major restaurant chains like Wendy's and all of this, the way they make fun of themselves, the way that they've loosened up, especially on social media. Social media communication is not the same as your TV ad campaign, or it's different. And if you're trying to engage with people, that is different than if you're trying to release ads and promos. Very different objectives. And I feel like self-awareness is in right now, and I don't know if it's gonna stay popular, but in this moment in time, people are very aware when you're being manipulative, and they can detect it, and they prefer if you're joking about the fact that you're running an ad right now, or you're being meta. I don't know if you know this word that's been trending lately. Oh, that was so meta.
What does it mean?
Oh my God, that is so difficult to define.
We'll get back to it in a second, but I am in a lot of agreement with you in terms of... So this is the thing. People with personal brands, successful people that have built followings and various different platforms, they are building goodwill with their audience. The audience is buying into them, their character, the things they do, their lifestyle, you name it. They have been given the gift of the audience's attention, and it's up to that person to choose how they use that gift. And some of them use that gift in a way that sells their audience to the highest bidder. And the audience is intelligent. They're aware that their attention is being monetized for however many thousands per post or whatever. And the audience may not mind if there is transparency there. You're saying, let's be upfront if we're going to be talking about an ad here, instead of shoehorning it in on the sly. Oh, by the way, drink this or something like that. So, but this is the thing though.
Wink, wink. I'm not promoting anything.
No, but I'm promoting. These guys are fantastic. So this is the thing. I don't mind. So I agree on personal branding and using your influence to help people move towards products or services that you as a personal brand believe in. Because, for example, every day I consume different products or services. I believe in a certain type of training or food, foodstuffs or diet or things like that, or activities to do in spare time, or any number of things. I would talk about them openly, and if there is a product or service that helps me achieve my goals that I believe in, why not support them? And I can talk about that openly, authentically, in a way that, by the way, guys, fantastic thing here, if you're interested, it's this. I might not be getting paid to do this, or I might be getting paid to promote this, and I'll let you know that I'm getting paid, but I believe in it, it's fantastic. You can get it too, and I've actually spoken with the owners of the company, perhaps, to give you this 20% discount code that you can use if it's something that you guys want. If not, let's continue with our lives and do... That's a bit more authentic, and I'm noticing successful podcast hosts doing that. Chris Williamson, he always shoehorns certain products or services that he himself partakes in, and I've seen Joe Rogan do the same. Very interesting. There is advertisements. Yes, they're monetizing our attention, but it's in a way where they have cherry-picked the products or services that they promote. I'm not sure if what their agenda is. Maybe it's the highest bidder as well, but I think it's also because they truly believe in it. Otherwise, they wouldn't give them snake oil, or they wouldn't promote something that they personally wouldn't use or believe in. So people might not be... Because you need to buy things sometimes. You need to buy things to live a certain type of lifestyle, and you want recommendations though.
That is more of a dialogue between the PR team of the influencer and the PR team of the product. Now, the influencer needs to be aligned in their brand identity with the identity of the product. So these conversations do happen. Sometimes it's genuine interest saying, oh, okay, this is something I use or believe in. Oftentimes it's more saying this is something that aligns with what I'm trying to appear as. And if the highest bidder is offering something that is contrary to the person you're trying to appear as or become as your personal brand, people are likely to reject those offers. And it's very normal and understandable. But it's less about product I use for a lot of these influencers and more about, do I want to be publicly seen associated with the identity of this product? So
people starting a business now, the logo we talked about, the logo, the brand originally, I think the very first instance of a brand existed years ago. We're talking more than hundreds of years ago, when farmers would, on cows, they would brand them with a heated metal shaped in a certain way that is their logo, for example, and they would, create a stamp on the cow so that other farmers knew that this was their cow, and then eventually the milk that came with that cow maybe would have that stamp, and people would know, oh, this is from a certain farm, this is from a certain brand that I can understand that quality is associated with it, consistency, all of maybe the key things of the product that you would like. So that's when it started. But I think people have got conflated now with the idea of how branding works, in the sense of starting their own, because we talked a little bit about personal branding. If we're talking about people that want to start their own business, branding, you said simplicity, don't overdo it. What key elements are there? You said, so we mentioned a little bit about the color palette, some adjectives to describe it. How far should they go with it at the very beginning stages? Because you said also it's an evolving process. It's not something that's going to stay fixed in the early stages. It's going to adapt with time. People that are starting out, what process should they follow? Like, what steps 1, 2, 3 should they do when they're thinking about doing what they need to at the beginning just to get started with their brand?
Like I said, first thing, don't be too picky and don't insist on putting everything in a logo. You cannot put everything in a logo. That is impossible. So let go of the desire to achieve that objective and be more open to things that just stand out, things that are unique enough to resonate and become recognizable. And definitely in the beginning phases, you need to visualize how your brand is going to, look on social media, look here, look there. So the color palettes, the fonts, those define them. The basics define them all. But there are going to be things that develop later on as part of your brand. For example, the lifestyle of your brand. Be open to, in the first year or two, to add some of the things that develop. I'm going to give you the example of Laylaki. We started as a purely Lebanese brand, but there was a taste and a talent in the kitchen that could do general Oriental. And then later on, we launched a line of Kurdish foods, and the identity has grown from a Lebanese restaurant to a Middle Eastern Orient. So don't be so strict to reject awesome food just to say, well, originally I said in the beginning it's okay to grow. But later, when you have your parameters and you've defined them, it's also okay to reject things that you don't feel like resonate with your brand. So this is why every brand needs a little guardian to determine what elements fit it and what elements don't. And we're also talking about elements, visual elements. A lot of designers or creative directors, art directors, they end up using certain shapes, calling them the brand elements from the very beginning. And sometimes they just don't work, but the people in charge of the brand, they try to force it onto the brand. When we were working on the Vinery Cafe, there were elements in the identity, coffee beans and all of that. It didn't work with the it looked bad when we were using them on napkins. It looked bad when we were using them on delivery bags. So you don't need to say that, oh, I already committed to this. Darn it, I need to. In the beginning, brands evolve. Be open to that. Try to define, try to be as specific as possible, but be open to the evolution of your brand, because just like raising a child, it will develop a personality. And sometimes you can't predict. You're not trying to intentionally have the kind of child that throws tantrums in the grocery store, but you might end up with the kind of child that throws tantrums in the grocery store. You're maybe not trying to intentionally be the type of cafe that people use for poetry, spoken word, but you might find the audience, and then that becomes associated with your brand, and you let it grow. It's okay.
Brands always go through this transition no matter where they are. You said you can stick to certain parameters after a while. Do you know when that while is, or does that differ brand to brand? And also, I know very big brands that have operated for many decades that even for them they've transitioned. If you're thinking about in World War II, certain brands that were operating then had a different narrative to afterwards. If you to look at them today versus how they were 50 or so years ago, same brand but identity slightly different. So is it always an evolving process? Like, you're not the same person you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You're evolving. Should we think of brands in a similar way?
Yeah. I am very pro thinking of brands as people, as you've noticed in the way I speak of brands. They're like people. So yes, it's always it's always an evolution, but you do need to safeguard, direct it in the right direction. You do need to be intentional, but yeah, it's always evolving, and that's okay. And it's kind of amateur to be very resistant to the evolution, to be too resistant, saying, oh, this doesn't. Let things happen, the times change. Yeah.
Are there any particular brands that you've worked with before, or even not worked with before, that you admire, you love the way they've done it? There's something specific or some things that they do that are just right. You know what I mean?
The thing is, you have to cut this out. Almaza. Almaza beer, man. Of course. You're going to have to cut this out.
But tell me though, why? Why? What makes you love it so much?
It's a staple of simple, creative communication. I don't know. Do you know anything about the campaigns that Almaza runs as a beer?
I know a few, but entertain us, enlighten us.
The latest campaign that they had, it was like the word beer written in different languages, and then at the end of it, with, for example, French flag, how you say it in French, Spanish flag, English flag, and then you have the Lebanese flag, Almaza, because it's the beer of Lebanon. And they succeed in being cheeky, while every other brand is also trying to be cheeky, but somehow they're inauthentic. And when this brand that started with that language tries to be cheeky, they just succeed. And I admire that so much.
I've met people that can get away with anything because of their personality, whereas if someone else did exactly the same thing, they'd be in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Good-looking people, by the way. Good-looking people can get away with so much more. This is a tragedy, but and personality hires at work, I don't know if you've met them, they get away with so much more than other people do. Branding helps.
Interesting insights here. Fantastic. Okay, we've got one more. We've got time for a question. One more thing that you would tell someone now looking, this is personal branding. What advice would you give someone now to think about for the next 12 months to help them develop their personal brand to become something that is going to be special?
I don't think I'm in a position to answer that because I haven't mastered my own, and I do believe to a degree in the saying that, check yourself before you say
Check
anything.
yourself.
So I don't think that I myself have succeeded in envisioning the whole 12-year program. So I don't think I'm in a position to answer that.
Okay, then let's switch it to companies.
Okay.
How would you advise someone building their first business brand over the next 12 months to think about it?
Watch someone else do it first. It is not, I know that communication, branding, marketing, this side of it, it seems so easy, so intuitive. And yes, trust your intuition in this field, of course. It seems very easy that everyone jumps into it first. Figure out everything else about your product service and watch someone else succeed at branding and then attempt it. Because it is not as easy as it looks. You often fail, and people often don't buy into what you're trying to sell them. People are very resistant to you. You have to. It's a lot like sales, and that people are trying to resist you. And you have to make yourself likable, and you have to keep going. And it takes so long for an identity or a campaign to catch on. It takes very long, and it takes huge budgets for a line to become popular. And sometimes you put millions of dollars and it still doesn't catch on. It happens.
Banu, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having
The
me.
first of many shows for you, I'm no doubt guessing.
We'll see.
We've opened the door.
We'll see.
Your advertising and branding insights have been valuable, and I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from your experience here. And we'd love to have you on again in the future, get you more out of your comfort zone, and hopefully by then you'll have a lot more personal branding.
Serving my objectives. Yes.
You have a lot more personal branding tips to give us next time you're on.
Let's see.
Your personal brand, I can see it's going to skyrocket after this.
Let's see.
Banu, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.